Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's nice to see you today. My name is Dustin Cormier and this is another episode of How to Rock Astrology. Today we are finally digging into our Moon in Scorpio series. In particular today we're going to be talking about the combination of Scorpio Moon with Scorpio Venus. In Vedic terms, anytime two planets are in the same sign, even if the moon is at 1 degree and Venus is at 29 degrees of Scorpio, in Vedic astrology, we consider this a conjunction because both of these planets are still working through the dispositor Mars. Mars, as a channel, is sharing and holding the content of the soul information of both these planets, and so there is a shared conjunction going on here. Now, in Western astrology, there's many different ideas of how this would go. In some ways, if the moon is full, if it's going towards full, if it's waxing, it's considered benefic. And Venus is always a benefic. So at some level, both of these can be putting benefic positive energy into the sign of Scorpio, into the first, into that sign. And Venus helps the moon at a level because it's benefic. But something that happens with the moon and Venus being in the same sign, in Vedic astrology, what we consider is that the moon is actually an enemy to Venus, and Venus is neutral to the moon. So the moon is not necessarily damaged here, but what happens is that the moon is absorbing and overtaking some of the equal sharing that would happen through Venus, typically in any other position. The moon starves Venus when it is in deep association with Venus, the planet. So, this is going to be happening in this configuration. This might be a little bit tough on the person because this person might already have some difficulty getting with an emotional reality, a heartfelt reality that is on an equal playing field with a partner because it's Scorpio Moon. Scorpio Moon is already typically a consciousness that doesn't look for others doesn't look for others to grow through and with. It wants to be able to grow on its own without the prompts of other people, and so it doesn't invite others to be a part of its growth process. But usually if it's at least got a good Venus, it has things to offer other people to be close to them while they go through their own internal hell of their own transformation without asking for anybody's help. In this case, even Venus is being served to the purposes of this moon's rather unconsciously isolating tendencies. Now, there's a lot to kind of go through here. Not every Scorpio moon is going to be that lonesome. If it's closer to, again, the full moon, and if it is closer to, essentially, if it's waxing, if it is, the closer it is to the full moon, the better the moon is. But if the moon is at least in front of the sun, and not past the 7th mark, the 7th house from the sun, then the moon is waxing and it has benefic energy there too. And so it offers nice things. It enjoys being good in order to invite people to be a part of its essentially still isolated nature and its loner nature in some way. So ultimately, you have to look to different things as well as the health of the moon in general, aspects from friends, etc. This can give you a positive moon. If the moon has got a trine from Jupiter or even a trine from the sun, then this moon is in a better place. It can get what it needs in order to convey connecting with others to have what it needs. So ultimately, what I want to say in this video a lot is what it means when the Venus is kind of being starved by the moon, by them both being conjunct in Scorpio, by them both being in the sign of Scorpio. In order to unfold this, we got to talk a bit about Scorpio Moon. If you want to check out my previous video, I just recently put out a Scorpio Moon video. What's Scorpio Moon all about? Check that out, and then come to this video if you want to get the specifics on the Venus sign. Now, something I often convey when I start this videos is I say that, it's nice to know about what the other signs of love and beauty are in order to talk about the one we're talking about. The sun is our essential self, soul, nature. Venus is kind of like how we enjoy ourselves. It's the outpouring of the beauty of the sun. And Venus can show you how you enjoy friendship and even like sexuality in certain ways, but it's more of a interest of sexuality rather than the soul needs of sexuality. The moon is really the type of love that we seek to retrieve and that therefore we reflect. And also kind of by sign, by aspects, it shows how and why we retrieve the love that we do. The moon is the queen to the sun being the king. I've got a few metaphors for how I often like to unfold what this means. You as a Scorpio moon, you need to apply what all things Scorpio moon in order to get a stable earthbound reality that will allow you to transmit what your sun is trying to do in astrology and in your soul and in your chart. This would typically mean that depending on where the sun is and what it's kind of going for and conveying in its relationship to the moon, typically this moon type of moon energy is, again, it's rather not lonely, but it seeks to get through things, the difficulties in its life on its own. And so people love Scorpio moon because they don't need anybody, ironically. But yeah, like anyone who you've seen who has a Scorpio moon but has a good partner and keeps their whole thing spinning, it's because at some level you'll probably notice that their partner appreciates the fact that the Scorpio moon at some levels doesn't need much external things. It just needs to hug the rail of the familiar experiences that it's always had, and it does so in a powerful way. It wants it to be familiar. It just sucks when things happen that cause them to be out of step with the familiar groove they've always known, because that's a change. That's a new thing. And Scorpio moon, the moon is about adapting to whatever's given in reality in order to get what the sun wants. If the moon being debilitated means that it has a harder time adapting with whatever's outside of it in order to convey what the sun wants. So there's an adaptation that's kind of struggles with the Scorpio moon. And it has to kind of abide by the evil associated with that. Or not evil, but the lack of auspiciousness associated with that. So the moon is the queen and the sun is the king. Let's say that the sun is the soul and the sun says, let's say the king says, hey, I'm thinking that I want to go and eat a nice piece of blueberry pie. Or I'm going to go out drinking with the boys and I'm going to drink some beers. And the queen says, now, honey, you know what that's going to do to your blood sugar? So the king thinks, the king can still act on it and go out drinking with the boys and forget what the wife says. But the wife is probably right. And the king would do well to abide by what the queen suggests he do with his energy field. In the same way, you as a Scorpio moon, you probably have a queen inside you who is very careful about who you bond with. Even though you might bond in some ways with many people in order to show that you can do things for them, in order to show that you're powerful. You're really trying to show yourself that you're powerful. And this could mean erotically, or this could just mean doing things for other people. Scorpio moons, ironically, do more for people. At least they express the action of doing more for people than any other moon sign. Just the fact is that the moon is supposed to be a trick of working smarter, not harder. You're not supposed to work really hard in order to secure the foundational vitality lines of the relationships that feed you and nurture you. They're supposed to come to you like an open valley. And if you have to fight in order to keep them, they're not as reliable and they're not as ultimately consistent as you would like them to be. This is the nature of Scorpio moon. They say it doesn't matter because I don't need it. It's like, well, that's great, but that means that you're not going to get it. You're putting out that you don't need it, which means you're not going to get it. And at some level, you kind of have to accept that this is part of your groove. But ultimately, the moon debilitated in Scorpio learns that reality forces us to serve others and to open our heart to the vulnerable needs of our heart. So whenever Saturn comes along through Scorpio, for example, you're going to learn that Saturn will teach you that if you don't just crack open your defenses and say, okay, universe, I need some mutuality in my action. So as much as I'm helping others, I want someone to also care for me without trying. Saturn going over Scorpio for you will teach you that you can't do it all yourself, no matter how much you try. And if you make it through Saturn going over your moon without ever asking for help, you might be worse off. It might be more of a bad thing than a good thing than you did it, that you did it without asking for help. So this is just kind of moving the idea of Scorpio moon. Now, the queen is an important aspect of our soul, that being the moon. It's something that you need to jive with. Now, for most people, usually the moon and Venus both resonate with the tattva, the panchatattva of water. They kind of share that center, Svadhisthana, the second chakra of water. The moon and Venus kind of share that, along with Jupiter in a way. There's many ways to convey the chakras. But in terms of the tattvas, it's the primarily Venus, but the moon is a part of it. And what often happens, the moon and the sun are parts of the soul, and you don't want them to get stuck in the panchatattvas, which are the 5 elements. Mars, let's say starting from Jupiter at the ether, throat chakra, to ether, air, fire, water, earth. And that's Jupiter, Venus is the heart, Mars is fire. Sorry, I duffed it already. Jupiter is ether, Saturn is the heart, Mars is fire, Venus is water, Mercury is earth. This is how Vedic astrology describes one dimension of the chakras and the tattvas, the 5 essential essences. And you don't want the soul to get caught up too much in these vital essences. You don't want your sun to overtake the fire chakra where Mars is supposed to be. And you don't want the moon to overtake the water chakra where Venus is supposed to be. And in this situation, the soul through the moon is in the spot where Venus is. What it is that when Venus is conjunct the moon, Venus encourages the person to enjoy the delights of the moon and of the emotions a little too much. It kind of becomes like the figure of someone with the moon conjunct Venus is someone who they're like a child who, they're so wrapped up in their own joy of their body and their personality that you almost can't get close to them. You want to poke their belly and they're like, ooh, ooh. It's like they're so sensitive about the pleasure of their own body and personality that they forget and they neglect Venus, which is the sharing. It's delicious that somebody can be so revved up about the joy that they get from their family or by people loving them in general. But when you get so attached to the love that comes in, you take it for granted, and it's harder to develop a consistent mutual need for expressing joy and sharing in an equilibrium of fairness in terms of intention put into the relationship. When Scorpio moon takes on Venus in Scorpio, there's a lot of compact sexual energy and passion into one space. And the needs of the moon are absorbing the Venus in Scorpio. And what happens is that the person becomes so enamored by their own ability. What happens is that they get deeply patted on the back throughout life for being able to do things on their own. And that either, if you've got a good moon, if it's got good friends, positive aspects, and it's got good shad bala, and it's got generally good things in the chart, if it's close to the 4th house where the moon is kind of happier, what'll typically happen is that this person will be patted on the back by people who actually care about them. And those people will love them and care about them, even though they kind of shut themselves out, as the Scorpio moon with Venus in Scorpio. They want to be a loaded shotgun that never unloads the load. They want to look like they are a joy to everybody. And usually they'll put on a front in order to be a joy to everybody. That's Scorpio moon. Taurus moon is the type of person who is still joyful, and they still bring joy to people, but they make sure it's an equal deal. They inherently know that they don't want to do all the growing and all of the, they don't want to do it for just everybody. Even though they still do bring people joy to the people close to them, they inherently think about sharing the space of need with others. Scorpio moon doesn't necessarily think about the other person. They just think about what they're bringing to the relationship, and then they just hope that the other person can like what they put out. So Scorpio moon with Venus in Scorpio, the Venus in Scorpio loves it, so what I meant to say is that they'll get patted on the back, this person. Venus is patting the moon on the back for being a solo individual who doesn't need anybody. And it's either people who you love who are doing this, if your moon is well placed and you're lucky enough to still have a good moon. But if your moon is not well placed, and if it doesn't have what it needs to ultimately convey the magic of the moon, which is to have people supporting you. It's the universe supporting you. It's the Jivatman. You have vital energy coming from the universe supporting you. If you don't have a good moon and you have this moon in Scorpio and the moon is with Venus, what's going to happen is that you're going to pat yourself on the back for not needing others. And you're going to feel the Venus as a benefic is going to congratulate you in some ways. You could even be a strong yoga person who can who can push yourself to, again, not really need others. And that's good up to a point, so long as it does not ultimately, what happens over time is that you can be without people and make yourself happy enough to get around and do what you want to do in life. But this energy in particular, because it's in Scorpio, it can be a very sexually oriented energy, where there's a huge energy in Scorpio, a desire to express the fusion and merging that Scorpio represents. It's someone who still wants to be worthy of the energy that they deeply have inside them. So what they'll do is that they'll teach themselves to be probably a very good tantric lover in this way. They'll learn to listen to others, but it will be because they feel like they can't actually link in the soul with somebody. No one could possibly love me because I'm so self-oriented. And they probably secretly, deeply long to be loved. And what happens is that they go out seeking sexual fusion and soul fusion with people, and they end up getting typically sometimes entangled in the delusion of finding a soul mate experience. I'm personally of the belief that soulmates do not need to just be one person. I believe my cat is a soulmate of mine. We have done soul karma with each other. I've helped him and he's helped me, and there's a soulmateship there. I believe all the lovers I've been with are soulmates in some way, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be the one person who I want to spend the rest of my life with. This Scorpio moon with Scorpio Venus energy will find many soulmates, but will not think of themselves ultimately worthy of this, of developing a mature relationship that involves the other person loving them without them trying. Scorpio moon with Scorpio Venus tends to be admired for what it is and what it does, and even what it is without trying. But it's not the soul qualities in this person, it's the sexual qualities in this person that people become enamored by. Which means that a lot of people like this, you know, don't take this the wrong way, but this is a particular situation that might end up having people who convey this sort of energy where they are a delicious sexual snack. They're a wonderful little treat for anybody and everybody who hangs out with them. Let's just hang out with, you know, Stevie, like some kind of Stevie. I'm thinking like Stevie Nicks. I don't know, but you know, Sally or whatever. You know, everyone loves to hang out with Sally, and Sally likes to hang out with everyone, but no one can get too close to Sally because Sally likes to hang out with everyone and to be admired by everyone for a sexual radiance that she projects. And she might even entangle herself sexually with several different people, which all ultimately rev up your emotional psyche's ability to have self-esteem in order that can blister and penetrate the world that it seeks to conquer ambitiously. And there's a lot of powerful people who can go really far with this combination for this reason. But ultimately, there's a lesson from the moon in Taurus for every Scorpio. We know that the moon is about adapting and having it's the support that the universe gives us. And this symbol of the support that the universe gives us is exalted in Taurus, the sign of sharing, the signs of making equal amends, which means that ultimately, no matter how delicious this person conveys themselves to be to everyone, it's still a good thing for this moon to not get too wrapped up in being a treat for everybody, but being a soul partner for nobody. It's not to say that you need to be a monogamous person, but you can be somebody, even in a polyamorous relationship, or even in an asexual relationship, even in a person who doesn't want to get married. Ultimately, if you are stealing your ability to connect your soul with something in the universe due to the pleasure that you get by superficially connecting with things in the world, you will always jump to the superficial and skip the deeper evolutionary pressures that could cause you to get out of whatever shell that you are not realizing you're trying to get out of and that you're stuck in. And this is particularly true of Moon and Venus in Scorpio, which is a blistering, pushy, willful energy ruled by Mars that actually wants to go further. It's ambitious. And you'll find that you'll be obstructed in your ambition if you don't crack through your familiar mental habits and patterns and tendencies. With that being said, you are still somebody who sticks to what you know, sticks to what you love, and sticks to what you are. And this likely can make you a lover who really knows what you like. You are likely a lover who really knows what you love and probably love to kind of be a little bit come hither about, you know, like there's by being the moon in Scorpio, you'll typically put out what you are and look around for people who will cater to that. It's not like the moon in Taurus, which is still unabashedly itself, but it doesn't, moon in Taurus won't swiftly make claims for the only way that it can be turned on, or the only way that it wants to be turned on. The moon in Taurus is very open to the fact that it has fixed soul desires of how it wants to get turned on, and it perpetuates it. But it doesn't put the pressure on the other person to give it to them all the time. Moon in Scorpio likes, especially with this Venus here. Venus with the moon in Scorpio is so revved up about the sexual things that work that they aren't going to explore beyond the boundaries of what has worked, at least not instinctively. So any partner of yours is going to notice this and learn how deep the groove goes for you of those familiar things that turn you on, and they're eventually going to start to, like, what else have we got in this bag? What else is there to be shared with you in this very deep energy of yours? And you would be well served to explore with them, even though it might be painful for you. Ultimately, when you do get with a partner, when you do explore, you again would be well served to go and seek what your partner can give to you. But you should also this is your positions of your planets, and you should just own the fact that you are somebody who does very well knowing your strengths, knowing what your powers are, and knowing that you can really show somebody a good time. Don't feel like you should put yourself on their pedestal in order to do that, but also don't feel like you're on a pedestal and you have to become hither because of all the hard work that you do. It's not good for anybody's moon. It's not what the moon wants to do, is work very hard at your job and then come home and say, hey, honey, I just worked 10 hours at a job that I hate, so you better be able to rub my feet in the way that I want it. You would be right in that circumstances, but are you working smarter or are you working harder to get your love in that instance? That's what I'm getting you to think about, right? Ultimately, if you do this right, be open to what the universe gives you, but also recognize that because you are instinctively familiar with the things that you do love very well, lean into that and don't be attached to it. That's what a yogi would ultimately say, because it is part of who you are, at least the ephemeral dimension. I wouldn't say it's quite your soul, but it is a part of what your present incarnation has grown to be, and it can there's love to be shared, there's energy to be shared in a positive way there. So lean into it and have fun with the amount of love that you can give through the modalities that you love best. Give your lover that, and if you find the right lover for you, they will accept that you love the thing that you love so deeply, and they will vibe to the kink that you vibe to, and they'll share that with you. Ultimately, your lover doesn't, you could be a lover, you could have a lover that has a perfect moon. You could have a lover who loves you for your Jupiter, and they don't have to share your erotic instinct in this way. You know what I mean? So they might just cater to whatever your thing is, Ultimately, if you've got a good 7th lord, good 7th house, good 4th house, good 4th lord, and there's positive aspects to these planets, and even if you don't have all these, you're a Siddhanta Buddha person who invokes the essence of love, then you could still find somebody who works to your thing. This is just the caveats I like to give. Now, this has been a long video already. Let's just round this out with a little bit of Erotic Astrology by Phyllis Vega. What we're talking about is the moon and what's it like to be in bed with someone who has the moon in Scorpio with Venus in Scorpio. You are capable of pledging long-lasting affection, but only to a partner who is willing to play by your rules. You're generous, sympathetic, and understanding, and exceedingly loyal in love. You're somebody who does want to express loyalty for its own sake. But you absolutely refuse to be subjugated to another person's whims. This is a Western writer, and I would convey that part of what they're saying here is what I'm talking about, that you know what you love so much that you're going to probably stick to what works for you instead of being with someone for whom you have to get out of your power seat, right? Although a romantic alliance with you isn't easy, few people are capable of generating the intense passion and emotional excitement that seems to come so naturally to you, especially in the bedroom. This is the moon is a lunar phenomenon, and Venus is getting absorbed into the moon. And so the night fun and sensual erotic realities are probably deeply infused for this person. Again, there's more to life than this, and there's certainly more to Venus than this, and your Venus is kind of getting sucked in by the moon. So my advice is to enjoy what's there for you, but I'd recommend for this combination especially, get into yoga, get into meditation, and find a way that you can gain objectivity from your intense enjoyment so that you can still enjoy it. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is part of who you are. Enjoy it, but don't let it ruin all the other things that Venus can give. Venus is the planet of spring, of dawn, of living a fulfilled life all day, not just at night when you go and find a little liaison with someone who works for who you are when you've taken your boots off and you're home from work and you're ready to have a lovemaking experience. Venus is the all-day thing. In fact, really what Venus is all about is being with someone all day, doing the fun thing at night, and then waking up with them the next day and getting them coffee and then making some little cute little joke about, like, you know, like, ooh, damn, you know, you look just as good now as you did last night, baby, you know, and you go throughout the day and you do these little erotic talk that ends up being a full completion of the thing at night. Ideally, the moon and Venus are not conjunct, and they will have this kind of vibe. But, again, astrology is much more liquid and open, and we have more free will than most astrologers typically convey. And that's something I would like to leave you on. I hope you guys enjoyed this. My name is Dustin Cormier. This is How to Rock Astrology. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you guys on the flip side.